Hey everyone, Shin here. So after having the topic come up a lot in stream chat, I figured I would create a video regarding tips for new players coming into Guild Wars 2. What would the most important things for them to look out for, the most important things for them to be aware of and focus on while playing the game. What I've done with this video is I've ordered, I'd say, my top 10 tips for what I feel would be most impactful to a new player's experience in Guild Wars 2, from least to most. So without further ado, these are my top 10 tips for new players to Guild Wars 2. The first tip, coming in at number 10, is to be aware that Guild Wars 2 has 3 distinct game modes: PvE, World vs. World, and Structured PvP. PvE involves story-based gameplay, it involves open world exploration, running dungeons, fighting world bosses, things of that nature. World vs. World is a battle between 3-player servers for control over various territories such as towers, keeps, and castles, using siege warfare and various player armies to take control of these territories, these resources, which then cause your server to gain points based on how much you own, and these points go towards a weekly tally that, as it builds, your server gains various bonuses, such as bonuses to gathering, damage, health, any number of bonuses. Structured PvP pits 2 teams of 5 players each on small arena maps designed around holding conquest nodes in order to gain points and reach a threshold before the other team. This gameplay mode is more balanced in the sense that stats are equalized across the board, and team coordination and individual player skill take precedence over what stat combination those players are running. Tip number 9 is to pick a server based on your interests in regards to your friend groups and your World of World participation. After the April 15th feature pack, which was this large game feature update patch back in April, there has been a form of optimization with player sorting on the different PvE maps and in the Structured PvP lobby, to where the map you are placed in when you load into an area isn't based on your server. It's based on a variety of factors such as what guild you're in, where your party is, things of that nature. So the server you pick doesn't really affect your PvE or Structured PvP experiences are going to be like, because in Structured PvP the games will pick players from all over your region, and in PvE players will be sorted based on this mega server technology. Since these 2 modes aren't affected by server selection, it really only leaves World vs. World and your friend groups as the determining factors for what server you want to play on, because of the nature of World of World, which is just servers fighting each other, and your friend groups, it just makes it easier to group up with them and allows you to play in World of World with those friends. Tip number 8 actually ties in with a later tip in this video, but I figured as far as how it affects the experience of a new player, this was a bit lower on the scale, but it's still important nonetheless. When you are leveling your character for the first time, my advice would be to learn the weapon skills of every single weapon available to the profession you pick. The system in Guild Wars 2, when you start out, you don't have any weapon skills other than your auto attack on each weapon, and as you kill things, you unlock each ability on its bar until you have all 5 skills. Elementalists have this happen for every attunement. They don't have as many weapons, but they have 4 attunements that they have different weapon skills within. You unlock each ability within each attunement separately. Every other profession, it's just each weapon you use, you gain more skills. I advise this one as a new tip simply because it allows you to learn the different weapon skills, learn the different roles of each. It allows you to experiment and have more options than if you just pick one weapon, level that one up, and then stick with that for your entire time. It gives a lot more variety to your leveling experience. This is an especially important tip for those players who decide to pick up the warrior, simply because the warrior has so many different weapon combinations that you will want to be able to experiment. In fact, that is one of the things that, in my opinion, makes leveling a warrior as much fun as it is, because you can experiment with so many different weapon combinations. For those who don't know, my main character is a warrior, so I may be slightly biased, but this tip will definitely help improve the variety for a new player as far as the types of playstyles they have while they're leveling up. Tip number 7 is to check out your character's personal story. During character creation, you will be selecting a number of elements of your character's history and background that help flesh out the character in a way that you want to see them grow. And the personal story is a series of quote-unquote quests that have several splits and plot twists that are dependent on what your character's background is. Not only is this a good way to get some decent story out of the game, but also it is a very good source of experience and items while you're leveling up. Tip number 6 is to simply explore. The zones of Guild Wars 2 have had a lot of attention to detail put into them, and the number of secret areas and jumping puzzles and hidden treasure chests and any number of elements of the game world there are is just absolutely mind-blowing. You can find any number of things that are not only cool to find, but can also benefit your character greatly while you're out exploring. For example, you could find a treasure chest that has a bunch of equipment for your character at the end of a jumping puzzle that has a bunch of special enemies who drop a specific type of crafting material that you may want to use later on. You could find a mini dungeon that has a boss at the end of it that has a bunch of extra loot, who happens to also be part of an event which will get you even more experience. And, in addition to just the fact that there's so many things to find, map completion, which is the collection of every objective on a map, which would be waypoints, vistas, renown hearts, points of interest, and skill points, will net you a large amount of experience and a large amount of crafting materials and items when you complete that map. But that doesn't necessarily mean you should just checklist each zone and only go to those objectives. If you wander around the zone where one of these objectives is, you could very easily find one of these secret mini dungeons or one of these special bosses that could give you a bunch of extra loot or experience. Having all of this extra stuff to explore not only provides you with a lot of character progression, but it also gives you a greater sense of immersion into the world of Tyria and the world of Guild Wars 2. Tip number 5 is to craft as you level up your character. While you're out exploring and running your personal story and maybe completing maps, whatever you're doing, you'll likely find yourself coming across various raw materials that drop from creatures or that can be harvested from trees or nodes or herb sprouts all over the zones. You do not need to have any specific crafting discipline or profession to gather from these nodes. You just need to have a specific set of tools that you can buy off of any normal merchant vendor. Every time you gather from one of these nodes or kill a creature, you do gain some experience anyway, so there isn't really any reason not to do so. In addition to this, these materials can then be turned around and used for the various crafting disciplines in the game, and each level you gain within these crafting disciplines, you will also gain a fairly substantial amount of character experience. A lot of veteran players will tell newer players that a very quick way to level up is to just craft, and just craft your way up to level 80. While this is a viable method, for a new player it may not be feasible simply because it does require a lot of in-game money, a lot of gold. But if you use this as you're leveling up and you don't rush it, you simply use the materials that you gain naturally through exploring the world, not only will you be able to provide yourself with a lot of extra items that you can then sell or salvage for more materials or give to other players, maybe your friends or guildmates, you will gain a lot of extra experience while at the same time still retaining that sense of exploration or that sense of immersion in the game that I mentioned in the previous tip. You will be able to level up your character more quickly without detracting from the overall experience. Tip number 4 actually ties in with what I said for tip number 8, which was unlock all the weapon skills for your character. Tip number 4 is to simply experiment with all of the abilities and weapon skills you have available to your character. Being able to find out the different combinations of what you have for abilities will not only allow you to have some fun experimenting, but it will also allow you to learn your profession, learn your character a lot better, a lot more quickly, and allow you to be ready for any number of situations you may encounter in either PvE or PvP. It allows you to mess around with different things, allows you to tackle different situations with different setups. Maybe if one approach doesn't work, you'll be able to try a different combination of skills, and maybe that will help you tackle it. There are a number of veteran players who will say to just run a specific setup over another while leveling because it's the fastest or it's the easiest. And while, yes, you can go about doing leveling this way, I would recommend running around with just whatever you find the most enjoyable, because not only is it going to be more enjoyable to you, but it will also, again, help you learn your character more quickly and more naturally, and better prepare you for any number of things you'll be tackling when you hit level 80. Tip number 3 is to make a character that appeals to you. Don't necessarily go with what everyone says is the easiest or best. Just pick whatever appeals to you. If you want to start up, say, an engineer because you like the theme of gadgetry and experimentation, go for it. If you want to try a warrior because you like getting into melee and you like breaking people's faces, go for it. If you like assassin gameplay, try a thief. Any number of things. Just go with what you find most interesting and most appealing. Your character is going to be what you're going to be playing throughout Guild Wars 2, so you're going to want to make something that you will enjoy. But, luckily, Guild Wars 2 is good about other characters, about alternate characters, and should you find you may not like a certain profession, you can always put that one down and pick up another. You can do whatever you want, just make sure that the character you create is one that you will enjoy, and one that you want to play. Coming in at tip number 2, the tip I feel is second most important when picking up Guild Wars 2. Be social. Play with friends. Make friends. Join a guild. Just do something that allows you to more easily play with other players. While Guild Wars 2 can be fun solo, and for those who are more inclined to be solo, this game will still work, but being an MMO, being a game designed around group play, and having all of these systems that are designed to have more than one player involved, this is definitely a game to have a group of friends to play with, or have a guild to play with. In fact, there is a lot of endgame content, a lot of level 80 content that is designed to only allow groups, and you want to have a group of friends to make memories with, to tool around Interior with, to just enjoy the game with, run dungeons with, PvP with. It is a social game. It is designed for playing with other people with. If what I felt was the number one tip wasn't as important as I feel it is, this would most definitely be tip number 1. Find a group to play with, find a circle of friends, make friends, find a guild. There are any number of friendly, helpful guilds out there. Just look all over the place, even in game, and you're bound to find at least some group of people that shares your interests. And tip number 1, the tip I feel is more important than any other on this list for new players coming into the game. Play at your own pace. Do not rush the game. Guild Wars 2 is a game where there is content for anyone of every level, and there's a lot of really cool content to see while you are leveling up. While there is a lot of stuff to do at level 80, it's not a game to just rush your way there simply because that's where there's a lot of content. There's still a lot of content to do while you're leveling up. A lot of content that is available to the lower level player. In fact, you will often see higher level characters coming into lower level zones because there's content that is valuable to them as well, that is fun for them as well. Guild Wars 2 is a very good game for playing at your own pace. It is very good for someone who may not have a lot of time to sink into MMOs. It allows you to just play the content that you find most enjoyable, and no matter what level you're at. It allows you to level up in ways that you find most enjoyable, rather than just doing map completion, or just doing crafting, or just doing events. You can do any number of things, and you'll still get experience for it. You will get experience for gathering, as I mentioned earlier. You'll get experience for exploring the world. You'll get experience for resurrecting other players. You will get all sorts of experience and all sorts of character progression for just playing the game. You don't have to do anything special. You can play at your own pace and still make noticeable progression. You can play the character story, the personal story, and still make noticeable progression. You do not have to rush the game. You do not have to grind your way to level 80. Don't pressure yourself into going past all this cool content just because of something that you are worried about not being able to get at level 80. There isn't anything that's going to go away at level 80 because you took too long. There isn't any content that you're going to miss out or anything special you're going to miss out because you weren't on level 80. All of the content that is being added to the game now is permanent. So once you get there, you'll have that content available to you. You won't have to worry about having missed out on some special event that only level 80s were able to get in on. No, all of that stuff is permanent. It will be there when you get to level 80, so take your time experiment, do whatever you want, mess around with friends. Don't feel like you have to get to 80 right now. Taking this pacing of yourself into consideration will, at least in my opinion, enrich the game even more. It will improve your experience of the game because you played how you wanted, because you played the way you wanted. If you are worried about optimization, or you're worried about doing what is the best or anything like that, you can save that for level 80. Optimization doesn't even matter until level 80. You don't have to be the best or most optimally geared or anything like that while you're leveling up, because the content of leveling can be done with any number of setups, with any number of gear qualities, any number of character levels. If you are someone who likes challenge, you can feel free to tackle things that are higher level than you. You can go into zones that are more difficult or higher level than your character, and you can still succeed. You can still have fun there. You can still play at your own pace. If you are someone who's very casual and maybe isn't as inclined towards challenge, you can still play at your own pace. You can hang out in lower level zones and still be able to complete events and still get rewarded appropriately. You will still be able to gather items that are of your level, even if you are hanging out in the starter zone. You can do whatever you want while leveling up, and you can play at whatever pace you want. Additionally, PvP-minded players who want to jump into PvP right away and who may not be as interested in any of the PvE stuff, you can jump into structured PvP right away. Right after you finish the tutorial, there will be 2 crossed swords in the top left of your UI. If you click on that and then click the Enter the Heart of the Mist button, you will be plugged right into the SPvP lobby, and you will be able to play PvP and level your character up that way. You can play at your own pace that way. Again, this is a tip that I cannot stress enough for new players. Do not rush the game. Play at your own pace. Play whatever way you want. And do not force yourself out of enjoyment of the game just because you want to hit 80 right now. Guild Wars 2 is not the game to rush to max level in. And with that, those are my top 10 tips for new players Guild Wars 2. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, maybe found it useful. Perhaps you were even a veteran player who may have gotten something out of it. Feel free to leave a comment below, toss a like to the video if you did enjoy it, and if you really want, toss a subscribe to the channel. I'm going to work on uploading more content like this and other game videos, so feel free to stay tuned if you're interested. Otherwise, I will see you around here or around the stream. Take care, everyone.